Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 2022 September WatchGuard webinar. My name is Madison Slater. As always, I will be your tour guide this month on the updates of WatchGuard. So sit back, take a nice 30-minute break from your day-to-day, and yeah, we'll get you some updates and a nice demo. So just before we get started, a couple of things about this webinar. As always, everyone's lines are on mute. This is to make sure we all have a good listening experience. We are recording this webinar. It will be available for playback on our website. There's a chat window available to you through the WebEx, so please utilize that and make sure you ask any questions that you might have, and I will be happy to answer those at the end. And for any of you sticking around through the webinar, we will be doing a drawing at the end for a fancy JSCM group backpack. So make sure you hang out. We'll have that raffle at the end. I'll announce the winner. All right, so this month's topics, as always, we'll start you out with some firmware recommendations. We're going to talk about some WatchGuard Cloud Firebox product updates that are new throughout the summer. Our new Wi-Fi 6 Access Point Firmware Release, just doing a quick overview of that. And then our demo this month is going to be tips and tricks for securing your cloud-managed Wi-Fi 6 environment. In the event you are not using WatchGuard's Wi-Fi cloud, this will be hopefully some good exposure for you, just to be aware of what their offerings look like. We always recommend that people are analyzing their wireless infrastructure. Obviously, things change a lot over the years, so at least gives you some insight into how that system works. Just a quick little thing that I added in here that was not initially included on our list of topics, but just sort of a pertinent topic based off of yesterday. So 9/28, WatchGuard did have a cloud outage. This was fairly impactful, I believe, for at least I know for us and several of our clients. They have not yet released a summary of exactly what happened. We know that it was an issue with a third party. I have some speculations. I, of course, don't want to share those and be completely wrong. I would recommend that you all pay attention to the status.watchguard.com page. It's actually a really useful page that emphasizes any possible issues that they might have. And while it is available on their website, it is a little buried. So it is something that I keep bookmarked. I wanted to make sure you all knew about it. Their last update yesterday was around 5:40 Eastern. They did say that within 24 hours they would be providing a summary. So just if the off point or the cloud issue was something that impacted you yesterday, either from the off point perspective, I know I was just trying to log into the WatchGuard website and couldn't do that. Keep an eye on that status page, and again, within 24 hours of their last update, which was yesterday around 5:40 Eastern, they said that they would have a summary posted. But again, also in general, just a good page to have bookmarked. So in the event you think there might be an issue, you can check there, see if they're reporting anything. All right, to get into our actual planned content. So again, as always, we like to provide you with our recommendations on firmware releases. Too long didn't read version of this is that we are recommending the latest release on all of the hardware versions. So for our XTM models, our latest release is 12.14 that was released back in June. That is the recommended version for that. But again, if you are still running XTM devices, please make sure that you are looking at upgrading those as they are quickly reaching their end of life. If you are running some of our smaller T models or our older M200, M300, those are currently sitting at 12.5.11, which was released mid-August. We are recommending that version. And then for our other tabletop and M-series devices, as well as our Firebox Cloud and Firebox V devices, 12.8.2, also released mid-August, and we are recommending that one as well. Now, just on the horizon, so there have been some rumors about 12.9. I will be very honest, because we've gotten some questions about it. I do not yet know when that will be released. I am guessing that will be the next version, but I am not quite sure. They could have 12.8.3 or a couple of other things in between now and then. But as of right now, we are recommending the latest releases that are available to you through the WatchGuard website. All right, some WatchGuard Cloud Firebox product updates. So just a quick overview. WatchGuard now has basically two ways that you can manage your Firebox. You can do the locally managed or you can do the cloud managed. I would say that probably 98% of us are using the locally managed. That's where you're using either the web interface or WatchGuard System Manager to manage your firewall. WatchGuard Cloud is the cloud managed version of the firewall. It is pretty drastically different as far as how you manage the device, but there are a lot of cool capabilities there. And this is an environment that they are actively updating. Over the course of the summer, they had quite a few updates come out as far as what's available through WatchGuard Cloud. So I just wanted to point out a few of those from their latest release. Some new features that they have available. So one has to do with fire clusters. So previously in WatchGuard Cloud, you could add fire clusters for monitoring and logging, but now you can manage those through Firebox Cloud. So that actually for me was one of the big holding points. So now that we've got that functionality built in, definitely something that is piquing my interest a little bit more with Firebox Cloud management. Some of the other new features that they have recently released are certificate management. You can now import your own certificates through WatchGuard Cloud for use with Firebox TLS decryption or VPNs. One of the cool things about certificates and just cloud management in general is they're doing a lot when it comes to account management, meaning that if you have multiple firewalls under your environment, so if you've got, let's say 5 different firewalls that you're managing, a lot of this stuff you can do at the account level in Firebox Cloud, so you get more of that templated experience. And the certificate management is one of those things. So you can manage the certificate at the account level, which means you're pushing out the same certificate across all of your devices. An example of that, so for anyone who is doing deep packet inspection, good job. For anyone that is not, please make sure that you are. One of the key components of deep packet inspection is a certificate. Now, there's 2 ways to go about that. You can use the Firebox's certificate in which you push it out through your group policy, or, and honestly, the more, I think, the better process is you can utilize, if you have a certificate authority in your domain, you can use that certificate, because all of your computers already have it, and import that into the firewall. So where this new certificate management for cloud firewall management becomes useful is you could take that CA certificate, you can put that at the account level, that would push it out to all of your firewalls. So then, all of your firewalls, all of your computers are all using the same certificates. Some cool stuff there. And then some updates for SD-WAN live monitoring. They now have some visual representations of your SD-WAN usage. So you can see more diagrams and charts of what your SD-WAN utilization looks like. So it gives you a better ability to visualize connections and failovers. Should you go cloud managed? This is a question that we're getting asked. So one of the things, I don't want to say it's a downside or anything like that, but one of the things to know about cloud management is that you cannot just seamlessly convert your current firewall to cloud management. It does force you to rebuild the config. Why? It's the back end is completely different. That being said, if you are someone who is looking at implementing maybe a new location, you're setting up a new site, something like that, that's definitely where we're seeing a lot of people start to migrate to the cloud management. I do think that this is going to be a pretty significant piece of WatchGuard's future. That is, again, just my speculation, but everything's going cloud managed now. So just something to keep in mind. Again, if you're looking at setting up a new location, if you're going to be fully redoing a network, switching your firewall to cloud managed would be something we would definitely recommend that you at least take a look at, because I do think that there's going to be a lot of added functionality and benefit for doing that cloud managed. That being said, I am a management server kind of person at heart, so if you are someone who still wants to hold on to that local management of your firewall, I get it. I am there with you. I am sort of doing a hybrid piece with our firewall, so I definitely still rely a lot on that management server. But again, just some updates there for WatchGuard Cloud. They did release quite a bit over the summer, so just some big points that we wanted to make sure you were aware of. New Wi-Fi 6 firmware release. So if you are someone who is using a Wi-Fi 6 access point, did want to make sure you were aware of the new firmware that they have available. This is version 1.1.18. Couple of points that this either corrects or new features. So one of the issues it corrected, wireless clients successfully can now reconnect to an access point with WPA2 and WPA3 Enterprise, so that's good. Being able to reconnect to Wi-Fi is pretty important. You can now correctly disable a VLAN on an SSID after you enable the captive portal feature. Apple iOS 14.8 and 15. Whatever wireless devices are now correctly identified when you're looking at them in the portal. And this update is required to use the diagnostic tools and support snapshot features that are now available through WatchGuard Cloud. Just like firewall firmware, you should be keeping your access points up to date. And one of the nice things about the WatchGuard APs is that you can schedule out those firmware upgrades. So, you know, if you want to schedule it right now and push it at 2 in the morning, that's perfectly fine. We use the WatchGuard APs, which you're getting ready to see in our demo, because I like to demo live environments. I've been very happy with them. Coverage is great, and utilization is really cool. So that leads us into our demo. Tips and tricks for securing your cloud-managed Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi is one of those things that, you know, hopefully you can sort of set it and forget it, but in the setting, you should be doing that with as many of the bells and whistles as possible. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time, one, to familiarize you with what the cloud-managed APs look like. I know we've got a lot of clients that are utilizing the Gateway Wireless Controller APs. There are some limitations there. So, you know, if you're looking at upgrading your access points, I know there have been several AP models that have been going end of life recently. The new APs, they're pushing everyone towards this Wi-Fi 6 option, which is the better connection option. But I just want you to be aware of some of the functionality and features that are available. I will be 100% transparent. In the past, I was not always a huge WatchGuard Wi-Fi fan. I liked Gateway Wireless Controller. Their first iteration of cloud management, it took me some time to come around with it. This new version I have been very happy with. I think that they worked out the kinks with the original WatchGuard Cloud managed APs. So I think there's a lot of positives now. So let me hop over to our demo piece. And again, you guys are going to get to see the live environment of JSCM Group. So we have two APs here, and give me just a second. Let me make sure I'm in the right spots. For any of you that are managed by us, I want to make sure that I am keeping your identity secret. So when we are talking about our WatchGuard APs, so again, all of this is managed in the WatchGuard Cloud. So in order to navigate here, which I am now in the right place, all right, everything for our WatchGuard Cloud Managed APs is under our Configure section and Access Point sites. Now what this means is that you can have different sites set up, so if you need different settings for different locations, it just gives you buckets that you can do that in. Now, in general, I think the navigation of the WatchGuard Cloud is pretty straightforward. You can set up your WatchGuard networks. You can set up what your authentication, so we're using WPA2 Enterprise. Access Point VPN, so that's if you're using a remote access point. We have 0 right now. That is getting ready to change. We're converting all of our remote users over to the wraps. It's a very cool setup. And then if you want to have any captive portals, so like if someone's connecting to your guest network, they get hit with a splash page. All right, so let's talk about some tips and tricks. And this is going to be a little bit WatchGuard specific, but also just Wi-Fi specific. So we've got 4 SSIDs here that we have set up for JSCM Group. Our internal network is this Braveheart. Just a quick thing. We are broadcasting our SSID, yes. Just between you and me, hiding the broadcast of the SSID actually doesn't do anything, so don't worry about broadcasting it. If someone is trying to get to you, they can scan it and see it, so we put it out there. We focus from a security standpoint on locking down how you gain access to the Wi-Fi network. So we are doing WPA2 Enterprise here. What that means is that our users have to utilize their Active Directory credentials in order to connect. Now, when we're talking about different levels of security with wireless, the big ones that you will hear are the WPA2 personal or pre-shared key. So that's when you have a password that everyone uses to connect with. The WPA2 Enterprise, and then the WPA3 personal and the WPA3 Enterprise. Of those four, you should not use WPA2 pre-shared key unless it is something like a guest network. Please do not use a pre-shared key on your internal network. Why? It can be hacked. Also, if you have an employee leave your organization and they happen to have known the password to your Wi-Fi, they can just sit out in the parking lot and connect to it. So we recommend at a minimum that you are using WPA2 Enterprise. Now, that does not mean that your Wi-Fi is completely uncrackable, which we'll talk about some other ways you can lock this down in just a second. WPA3 Personal. So that is WPA3 with a pre-shared key. That is superior to WPA2. It is actually a lot harder to capture that password, and even by the time it is captured, that password is no longer valid. So in the event you are using pre-shared key, we do recommend that you switch to WPA3. The trick is that your devices that are connecting to the Wi-Fi have to be able to connect. They have to be WPA3 capable. And then WPA3 Enterprise is just using the AD version of that. Now, when you're setting up the SSIDs inside of this, so you can still do things like utilizing VLAN. So this VLAN 40, this actually comes from our firewall. That's where it's managed. We have that VLAN tagged through on the switches and then on the AP port that this device is plugged into. So in this SSID, I can specify that it is a member of this VLAN. We are bridging this network, meaning that we are pulling IPs from the DHCP that is set on the firewall. Access control. So this is one area that, while it is not foolproof, I do think that this is something that is a good way for you to help protect your organization, and really what sort of led to this, my idea this month for our demo. So utilizing an enterprise version of your wireless authentication means that your user has to authenticate with their AD credentials. Cool. That doesn't, though, prevent them from connecting with another device. So, for example, if I know, which I do, that our internal network is secured with WPA2 Enterprise, I just know, yeah, I've got to have my AD credentials. That does not stop me from connecting my personal phone to that internal network, and we really need to be enforcing that kind of segmentation. Telling people to not connect their personal devices to our internal network only goes so far. So this is one of the ways that I have restricted this. So we do MAC address access control. So these MAC addresses are all of the allowed devices. These are all of my company computers that can connect to our internal network. MAC address filtering is not 100% protective. You can spoof a MAC address. However, this is a very straightforward way for me to prevent a lot of those even accidental connections to my internal network. Now, you'll see that we've got two options here. We've got our allowed MAC address list and then our block MAC address list. Why would I want to block MAC addresses? That seems like a never-ending thing. So I utilize the same list. So this is my list of our internal devices. So let's hop back to our guest network. Same list, these are now blocked. Why am I doing that? One of the security issues that I could run into is that I post our guest wireless network password for our employees. So if they want to connect their personal phone so they're not using their own data, fine. They now know that password. So if I'm blocking something on my internal network, and we're a company of technicians, that they're going to figure out, okay, well, I just want to connect to the guest network because that's not as locked down. Previously, there was nothing stopping them from hopping over to that with their company-owned device. They have the permission on their computer to connect to a different wireless network. So this is one of the ways that I prevent that. So I allow these MAC addresses. Those are the only ones that are allowed on my internal network. Anything else, doesn't matter if you know the password, can't connect. On my guest network, I'm specifically denying those devices, so they can't then hop over. So again, access control is not 100%, but I do think it is an important step when we're talking about how do we control and manage the security of our Wi-Fi. The authentication piece is one part of it, but it's not fully comprehensive as far as how we protect against people connecting. Now, other things that we can do to help prevent unauthorized access to our wireless. Through the Wi-Fi 6 cloud, we do have the ability to do scheduling. So right now, I've got my guest network fully turned on. I could say that I only want it available 8 to 5. I could create a custom schedule. So let's say Saturdays and Sundays, I'm not going to have this guest Wi-Fi available because we don't have anyone in the building. I can do some traffic shaping, so not necessarily from a security perspective, but just from a control perspective, if I want to control the upload and download, so if I want to throttle what that network is allowed to do. And then under advanced, so a couple of things under here. The big thing is client isolation. When I am on a network, if I don't have client isolation turned on, it means that I can see everyone else on that network. Now, for something like my internal network, not a huge deal because those are specific devices that I'm allowing. For things like guest networks, I don't want Sally's phone to be able to see Robert's phone or vice versa. So turning on client isolation for things like unprotected guest networks, IoT networks, things like that, definitely something that is recommended. It's something that we actually look for when we're doing our security assessments, just because you don't want that information being accessible to someone who's just hopped onto that network. Now, just from a management perspective, anytime you make a change, so let's go back and let's just make a quick change to our guest. Let's say that I do want to turn off my Saturday and Sunday guest. When I save this, it's actually going to queue that change. And so it doesn't mean that I have to do that right now. It just means that I, at some point, will need to go in and I will need to schedule that deployment. So I can queue up some changes and then I can push it out to my organization. So again, just not anything super in-depth there. You know, if I had 3 hours with you guys, I could definitely talk about how do you fully design a wireless network and make it work to your advantage. But because this is a relatively new piece of WatchGuard's offerings, I know it's not something that a lot of people have had a ton of exposure with, and so it is something that I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of. Just to jump back really quick, the remote access points. So what those are doing is allowing you to extend your wireless network out into a remote user's home or office. All that you're doing is sending them home with an access point. You literally plug that thing in. Doesn't matter how it gets internet, it just needs internet. It phones home, and then you push out the SSIDs from there. It basically creates a zero route tunnel back to your network, so they can still get to your AD, they can get to whatever other internal resources. It's a great way for you to extend out that remote control without having to necessarily put a firewall into each user's home. So just a couple of things to be aware of there. If you have any questions about the Wi-Fi cloud, if you want to see a little bit more of it, again, it's pretty high level, but please feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to do deeper demos or discussions about what that environment can allow. All right, as always, we want to make sure you are aware of our upcoming WatchGuard classes. So actually next week, we have a class, Charlotte, October 3rd through 6th. Then we are going to be in Seattle, October 24th through 27th. Back here in Charlotte, the middle of November. And Orlando, Florida, right when that weather's starting to get just a little too chilly, come visit us down in Florida. December 5th through 8th. All of our classes are offered both virtually and in person. They are a great way for you to get additional information, to really get a deep dive into WatchGuard, to ask any questions with us. We really like our classes and think they're a great benefit to anyone that comes to them. So, All right, before we get to our questions, I do want to give you all the opportunity to send in any of those. So let me get my Q&A up. If you have any questions about anything we talked about today, any other WatchGuard related questions, please feel free to send those over. And while you're doing that, we are going to do our raffle, so bear with me. All right, and our lucky winner this month for our backpack is Stephen Brady. Congratulations, Stephen. It's a very cool backpack. A member of our team will be reaching out to you to get that shipped out to you. So congrats, thank you for attending. All right, I am not seeing that we have any questions, but as always, feel free to reach out to us. My email address, mslater@jscmgroup.com. Please feel free to shoot me an email. Your account managers, either Adam or Sue, also great resources if you have any questions regarding any hardware, licensing, or support. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are always happy to assist. Thank you all very much for your time this month. We appreciate it. You know, as we're looking towards the end of the year, you know, sometimes WatchGuard has a lot of updates, sometimes they slow it down a little bit, so it'll be sort of hard to tell. But if you have any recommendations, requests on things you want us to cover, demos, topics, anything like that, please feel free to shoot those over to me or your account manager. We will be happy to include those. We want to make sure that this is beneficial for each of you that take time out of your week to attend. So thank you all very much for attending this month. We appreciate it. Hope to see you in October. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And if you are on the East Coast, please stay safe and dry. Thank you all. We'll see you next month.